the 1950s as today, UFOs were a topic of great secrecy. They were important. In this context, the classified lives of men like Hynek and Menzel matter a very great deal. These were men strongly connected with the topic of UFOs, who by their outward appearance were at antipodes. Yet, below the surface, many commonalities existed. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, scientific consultant of the United States Air Force from 1948 to 1969, stated, "I would not spend one additional moment on the subject of UFOs if I didn't seriously feel that efforts to investigate and understand it and eventually solve it could have a profound effect, perhaps even be the springboard to a revolution in man's view of himself and his place in the universe." From 1947 to 1969, the Air Force investigated unidentified flying objects under Project Bluebook. The project, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, was terminated December 17, 1969. Of a total of 12,618 sightings reported to Project Bluebook, 701 remained unidentified. The CIA asked a Caltech physicist, Dr. Howard P. Robertson, to assemble a panel of respected scientists to study the UFO phenomena. This distinguished panel, which would become known as the Robertson Panel, spent 4 days, 14th January 1953 through 17th January 1953, reviewing the existing evidence. At the end of this time, they issued a report known as the Durant Report, which merely restated that UFOs were not a direct threat to U.S. security, but which reiterated the fears of the CIA that the Soviets might somehow use the phenomenon to mask an invasion of the United States. On July 26, 1947, Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal learned from President Truman that his name had been submitted to the Congress as the first Secretary of Defense in the reconstituted War Department, which came into being on that same day when Truman signed into public law the National Security Act of 1947, which also brought into being the new military establishment under civilian control. As a duly constituted civilian authority, Forrestal was charged with charting the nation's defenses and responsible for all intelligence activities of the military and the newly formed Central Intelligence Agency. Among other responsibilities, Forrestal was appointed a senior member of the President's reconstituted National Security Council and, according to unacknowledged documents, which has surfaced from informed sources over the last 16 years, was also a member of the Majestic 12, a panel composed of high-level members of the government and the military establishment appointed and tasked with the mission to thoroughly investigate, collect, and assess the worrisome phenomenon of unidentified flying objects and the question of extraterrestrial visitation and intent. At around 2 a.m. on the morning of May 22, 1949, America's first Secretary of Defense, James Vincent Forrestal, fell to his death from a small window of the 16th floor of the Bethesda Naval Hospital. The decline and death of Forrestal is an unresolved problem of history. There is no question that he suffered from a spectacular mental breakdown during 1948 and 1949. Exactly why he did so is less certain. The answer may have relevance to American national security and the pesky topic of UFOs. When the first flying saucer sightings were reported in June of 1947, Donald Keyhoe, as an experienced aviator, was skeptical. True magazine asked him to investigate in 1949, and he interviewed numerous flyers as well as military officers in the Pentagon. He discovered that expert observers had seen the unexplained discs, many at close range. His article, Flying Saucers Are Real, in the January 1950 issue of True, became one of the most widely read and discussed articles in publishing history and caused a sensation. The article was expanded into a paperback book. In January 1957, Keyhoe had become director of the newly formed National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, NICAP, in Washington, D.C., which under his leadership gave serious publicity to the UFO mystery through the 1960s and encouraged congressional hearings. Leonard Stringfield was an American ufologist who worked with government and private agencies to track UFO reports and had a special interest in reports of crashed objects. Leonard had numerous contacts at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and other important facilities and obtained invaluable data not available to 99.999% of the military or intelligence agencies. He was an American ufologist who took particular interest in crashed flying saucer stories. His contacts in the medical field gave him the first descriptions of the alien bodies allegedly recovered at Roswell or elsewhere. Stringfield's interest in the subject began August 28, 1945. Very curious, since flying saucer reports were first observed in June of 1947. Early 1980, Paul Bennewitz becomes involved in observing and filming objects which he has sighted on the ground and in the air near Kirtland Air Force Base and the Manzano Range. Reportedly, his wife was also present to witness some of the first landings he witnessed and filmed in the Coyote Canyon area. Subsequently, he contacts Ernest Edwards of the Kirtland Security Police, who over the period of the next few months becomes concerned and requests the guards on the Manzano weapons storage area report to him any sightings of unusual aerial lights. At the beginning of August 1980, 3 guards report sighting an aerial light which descends on the Sandia military reservation. The man's an authority. The UFO community lauds him as a leading light. The government views him as a force to be reckoned with. Stanton T. Friedman has devoted nearly a half a century to investigating UFOs and government cover-up. He knows firsthand about government secrecy. For 14 years, Mr. Friedman worked on highly classified government-sponsored research and development programs as a nuclear physicist. In the mid-1970s, Friedman began the first civilian Roswell investigation, culminating in the publication of Crash Corona, the definitive study of the Roswell incident. In 1996, he authored Top Secret Magic, which explores the Majestic 12 group established by President Truman in 1947 to deal with saucer crashes. He continues to be a thorn in the side of the CIA, National Security Agency, and other government agencies that refuse to turn over pertinent UFO documents. Friedman has filed many Freedom of Information Act document requests and appeals in his vigilant quest to make government UFO materials publicly available.